Hello, everybody. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. And thank you for joining us for this first in a 5-part series about digital asset management and PIM, product information management. We first started talking about this with the Henry Stewart team last year. So this has been a long time in the making, and I'm really excited about all 5 sessions. We've got really intelligent, brilliant, and experienced speakers across the whole series. And this first session is about an introduction to PIM, but it's actually quite a bit more than just an introduction, because we have a fantastic case study as well from BEGA. If you don't know BEGA, definitely look at their website. It's an absolutely beautiful website. One of those websites that you go and you go, wow, that's really elegant. And so I'm really excited to hear from Dave and Katie today about their experience connecting DAM and PIM. My name is Theresa Regli. I hope I've seen many of you before on some of these series with Henry Stewart. And I focus on digital asset management in my work, in my career, but that has pulled me by association into product information management. And a lot of the work I do is about the intersection of DAM and PIM, which is why I was so interested to pursue this series. So what I'd like to do first is invite our speakers just to come on briefly and introduce themselves before we get going. Let's just go in the order that everybody is on the screen here. Dave, would you like to introduce yourself to the group?
Sure. I'm Dave Cox. I'm the brand manager here at BEGA North America. My team works on websites, as Theresa mentioned, catalogs, social media, anything digital and print kind of goes through our department. So we kind of work a lot with PIM and DAM on our day-to-day workflow.
Cool. Nice. I'm Josh Van Dyk from Censhare. I'm the VP of Sales for North America. Been with Censhare for about 4 years, and was really helped Dave and Katie as they were kind of on their journey evaluating vendors, was heavily involved in that process. So excited to have them share their story.
Katie?
Hello, everybody. I'm Katie Tiemann. I'm the product manager at BEGA North America, and my team works very closely with the brand management team on the product information side and keeping our data healthy and accurate.
Brilliant, thank you. So you're going to hear from Dave, Josh, and Katie throughout the session. But first, I'm going to do the introduction to PIM, especially for those of you who are new to PIM, or maybe you're just getting into PIM. I'll give you an overview of what it is, how it works, and a little bit about business case for about the first 15-20 minutes, and then we'll go into some more expanded concepts from Josh. We'll get into a little bit more detail about the crossover of PIM and DAM. And then finally, we'll have our insights from BEGA and their experience. So this is a 5-part series. You don't want to miss any of it. I've been busily preparing the content with the different speakers, and every session is going to go into different aspects of DAM and PIM and how they can work together. And it's all going to sort of build on the knowledge as we go. So here's the dates. Please be sure to stick them in your calendar if you haven't already. And the time zones fortunately don't change, unlike the last series that I did, where the time zones all changed in the middle of the series. So this is consistently when we will be doing these series, and all of these will be available via recording. So no need to necessarily ask that over the course of the session. You will get an email that will give you access to that, and hopefully you'll be able to share the knowledge with your colleagues. During the session, please do put in questions. There should be a question panel in your GoToWebinar dashboard, which should be on the right-hand side of your screen, and you can put in questions at any time. We do take this until 1/4 past the hour of the next hour, so 75 minutes, and we'll address as many of your questions as we can, and any that we don't get to, we will be happy to have follow up on those, as many as we can afterwards. Okay, so I have the honor of doing sort of the PIM basics, and I'll show you some system examples, talk a bit about PIM versus PLM, a bit about data models, integration and syndication, and a little bit about the business case for PIM. So if you're in a situation where maybe you're trying to convince your organization to buy a PIM or invest in PIM, hopefully this will be very, very helpful to you all. So PIM basics. What is product information management? Well, it is what you would think it is. It's about managing product information or product data. Now, if you buy a PIM, and I want to make a distinction between PIM as a solution versus PIM as what I would call an enterprise practice, something that you need to learn to do across an organization. A PIM solution is about having a centralized hub for the aggregation of product information. So it's very similar to digital asset management in the sense that you are centralizing and creating a single source of truth for digital assets and DAM. PIM essentially does the same for product data, and in some cases product content itself. So I'll make the distinction between sort of data being very granular specifications and numbers and things like that versus content, which is more marketing oriented. So, and of course, that would all be useful to various business applications. Now, a lot of PIMs, and this is, I think, largely why PIMs have really proliferated in the last 5 to 7 years, is they also allow you to syndicate not just product data, but also digital assets and packages of data content assets to the practically omnipotent retailers and e-retailers that we have out there. So like Amazon, like Walmart, Tesco, Carrefour, pick your country, pick your big retailer. You need, if you are a big product company, of course, to syndicate potentially hundreds of records on a regular basis, or even thousands of records on a regular basis if you're a particularly big multi-brand company to these major retailers. And that cannot scale manually. So part of the reason PIM has really caught on isn't just to have this centralized hub, it's also to syndicate and share. Now, PIM is intended to support, as I mentioned, both product content as well as data management by having this consistent centralized record of all of it put together. And that PIM system is what's creating a single authoritative record of a product for an enterprise, and it can be independent of any other product data repositories. So if you're a PIM user, you can go to a PIM, but more commonly, you will find that downstream systems such as DAMs or web content management systems or e-commerce systems are more commonly the consumers of what is in a PIM, less so than people, right? It's much more systems consuming the data than it is people. So there's a lot of risks to not using PIMs these days. Inconsistent product data is a big problem. Inconsistent content, things that aren't up to date. You might only meet the minimum market requirements, for example, and of course, certain retailers have minimum requirements, so they're not even going to necessarily publish your product. And of course, you might fail to engage customers if you don't get everything out there that you need to. Now, teams that are using PIM can potentially win more customers. They can potentially expand their markets with more product content, better product content that engages buyers. And of course, that content hopefully drives purchasing decisions. And those purchasing decisions, let's face it, they're not just necessarily online. A lot of people research products, of course, online, looking at very detailed things like ingredients or specifications before they actually go buy something in person. Now, as I mentioned, like DAM, I like to say PIM is also a practice, right? Buying a yoga mat does not make you a yogi, right? It doesn't mean that you can suddenly do yoga. It's the same thing if you buy a PIM system, you can't necessarily manage your product data particularly well. So this requires a really thought through process and the right skills to support. So if you're going to be successful in PIM, don't think that the answer is to go out and just buy a PIM system. You need to actually understand, what is my product data? What is the nature of it? How do I need to store it? How does it need to move through an entire ecosystem? That is product information management. It's not just buying a system. Now, PIM applications enable users to do lots of different things. Manage business rules. Where does the product need to go? How often does that need to happen? Create workflows for the product data. It allows you to manage hierarchies and taxonomies for large product sets. And it allows you to have a flexible data model. We're going to talk about flexible data models a lot in session 2. So if you are someone who's a data modeler or a taxonomist, these are definitely topics to dive into. Now, vendors who sell PIMs, they're definitely taking advantage of the cloud today, and they're delivering solutions that take advantage of things like scalability, rapid implementation, and of course a lot of machine learning. So one of the biggies for PIM these days is translation, also scoring what product is most popular after which campaigns, for example, and automating images. And when I say automating images, it's not just the distribution. It might also be, for example, if you're a clothing retailer, being able to automatically swap the color of a piece of clothing, or adapting what a model might look like for different sizes, for example. So that kind of automation is also part of what can happen in a PIM. So let's look at some visuals. It's really interesting how many illustrations are out there sort of depicting what the different roles of PIM are. And there are, as I mentioned, a lot of vendors out there who have different sort of degrees of PIM in their offering, whether they're a pure play PIM vendor or whether they offer PIM as part of a central platform. So you could say that PIM is about gathering, enriching, and then publishing product content. Commonly, you have different legacy systems or different groups, such as suppliers, such as an ERP system, such as PLM, we're going to talk about that in a second, or even the most popular content management system in the world, which is still, sadly, Excel. And you might be putting all of that into a PIM. And these might be happening via exports, it might be through an API, it might be manual, and that gets published out to these different channels. And ideally, you want to do that from one source, right? And you don't want to have to manually send things over. You don't want to have to manually insert things separately into an e-commerce system or a website, or get it out to the different marketplaces manually. So the idea of PIM, aggregate, distribute, aggregate, enrich, distribute, really is the whole goal. Here's another illustration that I also liked. I probably looked at about, I don't know, 50 or 60 different illustrations out there about what PIM does. This one is a little bit more rich in terms of describing the different features of a PIM system that you can see here in the middle. It's a place to cleanse data and make sure that it's consistent and in good shape before it goes out to market. It's a place to manage workflows, to potentially integrate with the translation system, or to manage multiple translations, to do reporting, to validate, to of course organize and publish a catalog, to do just content management around marketing, enrichment, etc. So same sorts of sources cited here as in the last diagram, and also the same sort of outputs. So it's very consistent in terms of what the products out there are offering. I will say, and this is a key distinction really that we have between PIMs that are standalone and PIMs that work or integrate well with DAMs or systems that can do both, like Censhare, for example, is whether or not they can store and adequately manage things like videos and more advanced digital assets. So some of these systems actually have transformation qualities, or they have different ways that you can manage collections, just like a DAM would. But more pure play PIMs, they don't tend to have those sort of DAM features. So we'll get into some of those distinctions over the course of the series. Here's another very sort of fun, modern-looking graphic. You'll notice the same principles here: enrich, maintain. This one is particularly focused on translation, and also potentially, different groups here might be using, of course, different tools to create their content, to get things imported, and then the same sorts of output channels, commerce channels, as they're calling them here. Now, here's an example of an interface where we have combined digital assets and product information, and this is from Censhare, and we're going to see a little bit more from Censhare, of course, later in the session. And this is something that is a great example of bringing together sort of a hero image for a product. In this case, it's a bicycle, and we have both data and content on this page. So the data is the word I would use to describe the specifications, things like the frame size, the dimensions of this product, the product ID, things that have to do with pricing, things that are sort of small, discrete specifications that marketers shouldn't be allowed to touch and should not be allowed to modify. So in an interface like this, you wouldn't tend to let marketers make modifications to a lot of those fields. However, the content and the marketing content specifically is where the action happens, and where you can have marketers really engaged to write descriptions and to think about a short description, a long description, the different things that would go out to different retailers, and that can all really happen in here. And in this case, because of course Censhare also has it has long-time DAM capabilities, you've got a media tab here, you've got ways to classify content, and we'll get more into this in the case study. Here's another example from, this is Stebo, and Stebo is one of the biggest sort of PIM vendors out there. And you can see their approach looks a little bit more dry, I would say. But what you have here is the same sort of principles applied, where you've got different digital assets that are on this interface, as well as different fields where you've got, in this case, I've chosen the product marketing tab to show you, but there's also product attributes in here. There's primary information, and this is basically a different view of the same thing, the combined digital assets and product data coming together. And you can see some workflow systems under here, or some workflow steps, and even integrations where you've got a web content management system with SDL, you've got Lionbridge, which is a translation system, and these are different ways to send, syndicate, and sort of activate actions that have this connected to these other pieces. PIM, another PIM example here, agility. This is another system where you can see it's showing you thumbnails. It looks very similar to a DAM in some ways, where you've got product information and you've got essentially product titles and descriptions, same sort of thing. Just wanted to put some of these in front of you. You can see the different sorts of ways of these PIM systems show images, thumbnails, workflow status in this case, the product family that something fits into, if it's going through a workflow, how complete it is. So all of these sorts of paradigms are probably very familiar to you as DAM users. It's the same thing for product data in this case. So let's talk about PLM versus PIM. PLM is very different from PIM. So PLM is product lifecycle management, and you've probably heard of it before. And one of the key differences that you have is that PLM usually is earlier in the product lifecycle. So when you have an idea for a product, so you're planning and you're defining a product, you're developing the product, and you're validating the product, that's exactly what is really what PIM is about. Oops, sorry about that. That's exactly what PLM is about, I should say. And so a PLM is managing things like CAD drawings and bills of materials, whereas when the product's finally done and when it's specified, that's when the data would really go into a PIM. It's when it's developed and it's done and it's ready to go out to market. So you can see down the bottom, I've listed some sort of illustrative vendors here, where you've got ones that focus on PIM and then ones that focus on PLM, and they really are different. You don't find vendors tending to be playing in these different domains. And I would say PLM, which has been around for longer really than PIM has, it largely gets used also on the manufacturing floor. You know, when something is being developed, you actually have the people that are generating the products and creating the products and building them and sticking them in packages. They're actually using the PLM, whereas the PIM is not the people who are actually generally creating the product. Okay, a little bit about data models. I think I'm already getting close to the end of my time here. Data models within PIM typically include, as I mentioned, things like specifications. Occasionally, if you have a joint PIM and DAM capable system, you'll have media files, usage rules, whether or not you can use data in a certain way, in a certain geography, in a certain market. Sometimes you'll have language translations, as I mentioned, and of course, storytelling content. So a lot of these systems have integration connectors. And I saw a question come in about syndication and sort of what, how exactly does syndication get defined? This is where PIM systems offer you an automatic way to propagate your system, your data, to propagate your data downstream to retailers, to other websites. So syndication is really sharing beyond the enterprise generally. Retailers being the most common destination for syndication. Here's a little example of the data model. I don't know how many data architects we have on the call, so I won't dwell too long on this, but the idea is you want to build in a PIM different relationships, and the products can relate to product families, they can relate to different attributes, et cetera, et cetera. So if you are getting into PIM as a discipline, or if you're investing in PIM technology, you're going to need someone to model your data and design the right data model. And if you are a large product company, you're definitely going to want to think about tools within a PIM that allow you to synchronize with global standards that are out there. So GDSN is the Global Data Synchronization Network. It allows buyers and sellers of goods to essentially interconnect their data pools and allow trading partners to exchange data more easily. So this is a very widely used standard across large product companies that's very important if you're going to get into the data modeling. And then if you are thinking about a good syndication plan, or you're thinking about trying to automate getting your product data out to different merchants and I should say to different retailers, you need to make sure that they're aware of, what are the requirements of the marketplaces, including Amazon, Alibaba, social media platforms. They all have different requirements in terms of how they can receive data and content, and you need to be ready for that, because your PIM is what's going to facilitate that. You need to then optimize your product data for specific channels. You need to make it easier to push the data to these marketplaces, social media platforms, et cetera, and really PIM should drive that. PIM is going to be where you're going to have this consistency, but also your PIM can have a business rule that says, well, here's everything we have to send to Amazon in order to get our product listed on Amazon, or here's everything we have to send to Walmart to get this listed on Walmart. And the PIM can remember that as a business rule, it can put together that package, and it can get it out more efficiently than a human being can. Finally, a little bit about business case before I hand it off to Josh. There's users of PIM all over the enterprise. And as I mentioned, they're not necessarily just people, it's also the systems that they're using that are receiving data from the PIM. So they might not be direct users of the PIM, but they're users of the product data. And when we think about the business case for PIM, it's really turning the risks on its head. So when I talked about the risks of not using a PIM, if you're making the case for PIM, these are the points you want to bring up. We need to have consistent product data and content. We need to meet very broad and demanding market requirements. You need to fully engage your customers, and you need to ensure accurate and timely syndication. And you need to make sure that the retailers have the right content at the right time. And this is really, why companies are investing in PIM. If you need a more mathematical approach to a business case, there's a lot of calculators out there. I don't necessarily trust these calculators, but they're very interesting. This is one from InRiver, where they give you a whole bunch of sort of benchmarks that you can use around increasing revenue or reducing expense. You can feel free to use some of these if your boss or the CFO is asking for, well, if we're going to put a couple $100,000 into this, what are we going to get back? You can feel free to use some of these. I don't have time to get into all the details of these today, but these are some interesting calculations that you might want to look into and apply. Okay, conclusions before Josh takes over. So remember, PIM shares a key principle with DAM in that it offers a central single source of information, consistency of product data, very similar to DAM and digital assets. And so this sort of formula of consistency plus efficiency plus time saving plus risk reduction, it's all very reminiscent of the DAM business case. It's just around product data. PIM is playing a critical role across product marketing, online and offline sales, as well as logistics and manufacturing. And so when you think about PIM is driving these key processes, now provided that it's implemented, integrated, used, and managed effectively. Again, it's not just about buying the system, it's about creating a practice. So with that, I will hand it over to Josh, who's going to talk a bit about their perspective, Censhare's perspective on PIM, as well as some other interesting insights. Josh?
Perfect. Thank you so much. Can everyone see my screen?
I am stopping sharing. Hold on.
Right.
You see your screen, Josh?
Yes.
Perfect. All right. So let's dive in. A little bit about PIM and DAM together. In terms of a little bit on Censshare itself, we've really been pioneering in this space for over the last 20 years. We have over 20 years in the DAM space and about 10 or 12 in the PIM space. We have a very global presence with offices throughout the world. We have a 98% retention rate. And you can imagine once you start to get all of your digital assets and your product information into a system, you don't want to leave it because it's really helping you. And we have a really strong network, partner network of PIM and DAM experts. And this is really important. And I'm sure BEGA can speak to that experience as well. So, why PIM and DAM together? Why is it so valuable? you are really unlocking a true single source of truth, not just a single source truth of your assets, but all that product information. You know, a lot of people in DAM will want a DAM because their assets are all over the place in a bunch of different spots. But people in the PIM space also want a PIM because they're sick of these spreadsheets. So these two things can really create some harmonious synergy, eliminating those silos of your content. And obviously it allows you, as well as not only your staff, but also any externals, to be able to access that data. And you can actually deliver that data to the right channels at the right moment. And you know, you can manage the entire process, including, you know, the translations and the variants around that for maybe different countries. You can get rid of a lot of manual tasks, and you can ensure that the right data or enough data is being pushed out to that third party. Who's ever been on Amazon before, and you search for a product and you look at it and then you scroll down to try and find more information, and you just can't find enough there to go, I'll click through and buy. You click out and go find another product that has more information that you're confident in. So making sure that you're getting that out. And you know, over here on the right hand side, you can see there's a lot of PIM vendors out there, and there's a lot of DAM vendors out there, and there's some CMS vendors, but there's just not very many vendors that can kind of do it all. And that's why I'm excited about this series that Henry Stewart put on, because this right here, that's where the magic happens, right? Where everybody's working with consistent, accurate data. So there's a lot of PIM systems out there, as I mentioned, and all PIMs, or a lot of PIMs, will go, yeah, we're a PIM, but we can do DAM, I promise. We can manage an asset, right? So when a PIM says they can do DAM, here's where PIMs struggle with DAM if they're not a real true PIM DAM system together. PIMs struggle with DAM features like bulk editing of metadata, bulk downloading of assets, asset relationships. How are these images, videos, 3D models, products, product data, authors all connected? You know, managing those licensing and copyrights and relating those assets back to the product. Integrating with your print catalog or flyer creation. You know, having that separate cost structure, the visibility of your assets and the version control, linking those, you know, cross-linking those InDesign place graphics back into the products and your digital assets. And then converting assets from different aspect ratios. Those are things that oftentimes DAMs will do well, but PIMs don't. And then DAMs will oftentimes say, oh yeah, sure, we can manage some product information. Sure, you're okay. But here's where standalone point solution DAMs really struggle with PIM, is that product management, bundling products together, entity inheritance, and making sure that all happens smoothly and automatically. Again, print catalog creation, your packaging process. And again, if you have two, you're now having two different data silos. So again, if there's a lot of people out there that are saying, hey, we can do both, but there really aren't that many, what are some good questions to ask to make sure you're ending up with a real, truly enterprise PIM and DAM solution? So one would be, can you make sure that the data model is really flexible? Why do you want a flexible data model? Well, a lot of vendors out there will say, here's the data model, it's really rigid, make sure your data conforms within this model. And you might be able to do that if you're a young company and maybe you don't have a very complex data model, and it might work for you for a year or two. But eventually your data model changes. If you've been with an organization, you know that, or you acquire a new company like BEGA's done recently, and you need to have that flexibility in your data model. Can you create these complex relationships between the product, the digital assets, the copy, all the collateral, how it's being used, where it's being used, and maybe related products? Do you have the ability to create, business-specific features within the platform? In other words, if my team really needs something, am I wholly reliant on the vendor, or can we actually build in and on top of the system? Really key. Can you actually, do you have this ability to relate one to many and many to one? this is massive. You know, we've got BEGA joining us today. They create really sexy lighting, but within the lighting, there may be a product or many products that are in several different products. Maybe one piece is in 50 different products, and that one piece may be available for sale as a replacement product. So how do I relate those? Maybe I distribute it out to you know, Home Depot and Lowe's and, you know, Target and different retailers. Maybe I want that product to be able to go ahead and say, oh yeah, it's slightly different for each of these places, but really it's kind of the same. Can you manage the complexity? Can you handle those print needs around maybe an in-store flyer or a catalog? Can you handle translations and the variants that go with it? Can you syndicate out to third-party retailers? So really great questions. And this allows you to bring everything all together. A truly enterprise PIM and DAM solution will allow you to connect your third-party systems via very strong APIs, whether that's your ERP or your master data management system, and connect that in here so that your team is all working with the most accurate data, right, as they're producing collateral that then once it's approved, gets published out to the channels that are important to you, whether that's your website, your e-com, your POS, your social media, whatever it may be, all right? So really accessing all systems and serving all the channels so that everything is accurate. And on that note, let me go ahead and introduce Katie from BEGA.
Thank you, Josh. So just a little bit about BEGA here. We are a German-based company with our North American manufacturing and office headquarters based in Santa Barbara, with roughly 170 or so employees over here in North America. We primarily sell our products through the C&I construction channel. So we are working with a rep network and electrical distributors primarily. However, we do have a small subset of our products that we do sell directly online through some smaller lighting specific online vendors. And we currently have around 1,600 active products with thousands of SKUs associated with each of those. So why were we looking for PIM and DAM vendors in the first place? Well, our customer-facing teams were consistently giving us some feedback that they were receiving questions about data not matching between a spec sheet and a web page, and it was causing hardship, right? So if a customer received a product and the dimension didn't exactly match on the spec sheet and on the web page, if they hadn't planned accordingly, there were instances where we had to take that product back and restock it for them, not charge them, and it cost us money in the end. On those small instances, we'd do what was best. Well, we'd always do what was best for the customer, but if it got to a larger project, that could have become incredibly costly for us just by having inaccurate data. So we knew that this was becoming a point of frustration, but we weren't quite sure how bad it was. So I decided to do a quick audit, about half a day. I looked at maybe 200 to 300 of our products, and it didn't take that much of our time, and just kind of checked consistency between all of the pieces, all of the places that a piece of data was duplicated in throughout our technical documentation. I was expecting to find somewhere between 30% of the time, 30 to 40% of the time that the data was inconsistent. And what I found was up to 70% of the time from that quick audit, our data was inconsistent in different places that it was used. So why was that the case? And how did we not know that it needed that much cleanup? Well, looking into it a little bit deeper, we found out that we had over a dozen unique places where this information was coming from. There was no real revision control or clear ownership of those data points, and just an unsustainable amount of time was required to make any updates to all of the technical documentation and those pieces of data where they were used and duplicated on multiple technical documentation, websites, online vendors. So we started thinking about a PIM solution. At the same time, our brand management team was thinking about a DAM solution as well. So what you actually see here is an internal assessment of our data health and hygiene that our company uses throughout actually all of our departments. So our finance department, our IT department, all have their own versions of this. But what you're looking at is our audit of our product information, our website CMS, and our digital assets before we began the search for a PIM and DAM solution. Red is not good, so most of these characteristics needed a lot of work, whether that was the question of, is data protected from unauthorized changes? Is the data duplicated unnecessarily, et cetera, et cetera. So we decided on 3 main goals for our project, which were quality, so quality of the data, quality of our digital assets, productivity, really making a more efficient way to maintain and distribute this information, and then building for the future. So why PIM and DAM together? As I mentioned, the brand management and product management teams were both on a hunt for our own solutions. And at first we were looking at 2 independent systems. And we interviewed between the 2 of us dozens of different vendors. But what we started to realize was the information that we were both going to be populating in these 2 separate systems were ultimately going to end up in the same place. Both the dimension and the image, for example, were going to end up on that spec sheet or on that web page. So since we lived in each other's worlds, our information really needed to as well. So the traditional approach that we had been considering was connecting a PIM and a DAM via an API, and these 2 silos right there. But what we were able to find was this true hub scenario where that product can be linked to the media associated with it, the product family and different product hierarchy components, as Josh mentioned. So where that's many to one used, if you need to make that update of a electrical driver, for example, and it's used in 50 products and it has certain characteristics associated with it, you make that one update and it updates all of those dozens of products where that's used. So we had a list of criteria choosing our vendors, even longer than this one, but the main points that we were really focused on was ensuring we had a flexible data model. We already have our product portfolio fully established in a way that we would like to manage our product hierarchy. And so we really wanted to be able to create a data model that would work for our products and not have to fit our products into somebody else's model. We also knew that we would need that content delivered to multiple platforms. So our website, as well as additional online vendors and to technical documentation as well. We really wanted to integrate the system with our ERP system as well. So there are certain, while the PIM and DAM is our source of truth for product information and digital assets, there are pieces of data that are associated with those products that truly should live in an ERP system and not be duplicated. For us, that was distributor net price, lead time, certain characteristics like that that also end up on sales orders through our ERP system every day. We wanted to make sure that there was only one source of truth for those data pieces as well. So being able to link in our ERP system was crucial to us. We knew we needed a really robust revision control. There's a variety of different levels of granularity that we saw in terms of revision control possible. So we were really looking for the most history and being able to restore previous versions. And then we knew that we needed some implementation specialists to really help us execute our vision here, which is where Censhare was able to help us partner with Avire, an implementation company as well, to really build that data model for us.
Perfect. Thanks, Katie. Thanks, Josh. Hi again, I'm Dave. So now that we've kind of discussed why we chose to put our PIM and DAM together under one in one system, I'm going to explain kind of what we've built and eventually show you what we built. So if you asked me 2 years ago, or I guess let me start over. Katie and I's main kind of goal in this project was a single source of truth. So if you asked me 2 years ago what that meant, I would have said all of my assets revolving around a campaign or a project that my team was building, and that was what everything to be centralized around. But after many conversations between Katie and I, we realized that our true source of truth needed to be revolved around a product. And so as we kind of explored that, we kind of realized that all of our product, our digital assets, our technical documentation, all need to be under one system and related to each other. So it kind of helped us kind of streamline our day-to-day workflows. Hold on, my screen go away?
Yeah, we did just lose the screen share. I wasn't sure if you, there you go. Oh, I just saw the
I think we're supposed to be on the presentation still, but I can.
There you go.
I can still.
Okay.
I can still talk. I can still talk to the presentation. So we wanted all that under one roof, and then as we built this out, we actually realized that having this system, it helped us kind of adapt to the work from home scenario. So instead of having to VPN into our system or take a boatload of hard drives back and forth from the office, we were able to have it in the cloud and work from wherever we want in the world and be able to access our data and work seamlessly. And then the last piece that we kind of, before I jump into the system, the last piece that we kind of really kind of saw some gains with both of this information in one place. We created an API to our website that pushed all this data there so that it made sure that the information that we were using in our collateral and our spec sheets and such were also delivered to our website and with the digital assets that my team creates. So let me jump into the system. So right now you're seeing our web client. So I'm going to start from the top down. So here at BEGA North America, we sell 2 types of luminaires, exterior and interior. And let me stop my webcam so you can see my screen better. So here is our product types. So exterior, interior. Within our exterior product types, we have product categories. Within our product categories, we have product groups. So let me jump down into here. So within these groups, we then have families. So within the families, you will start to see some of our products, but let me first start with a family. So here is our family overview page. So as you can see, we have our product image. It always ties, or this is our product family ID number. We have some of our product information here. Some of this information is only on the family level, but certain information like this IP rating gets pushed down to the products as well and can be pulled onto the website and technical documentation on the product level, but we manage it at a family level. Let me jump back out to here. Down here, we have our extended families and our related families. Now, you can probably tell our data model is very unique and very kind of complicated. Censhare and Avire was really helpful in building this out to meet our needs, and we didn't have to adapt any of our data model to what they had already pre-built. This was all custom built for us. This big window here, you'll see the product families that are associated, or products that are associated with this family. You can see all the products, you can see the workflow state, the workflow steps that they are in. And then we also have our completeness check. So this is a quick view to make sure that the information is built out and is ready to launch. And then we also have some optional content here as well. In our details tab, we have our where used. So this would help my team know, say this product gets discontinued, we can now go back to all the places that this family is referenced and update any content that is needed once that's triggered. We also have a media tab. This is where all of our digital assets are associated to the family. So we have family imagery, we have web images, original content. Up top here, we even have our catalog page and some of our web documents that we create. We have our main media, that's the stuff that gets pushed to the website. And then there's a couple different views on if we want to see thumbnails and such. We have that as well. And then lastly, but not least, we have our history. So this is where it kind of keeps all of us accountable. Here you can kind of see who changed it, who changed the information and what. And so in one click, you can restore back if there is you need to change it back to where it was before, or someone made an error. So really helpful to keep our data accurate. We can see everything that happens. So now let me jump back here and let's jump into a product. So we'll go into a product, and now you'll see that our main image changed to this product in this family has a different optical system. So right off the bat, you can visually tell that it's different. We always have a link back to the family. And then here's our product information. So here you'll notice that there is a lot more information. So some of this information gets delivered from our ERP system. So take our marketing master part number here and our status. All that gets delivered through an API through our ERP system, and we can't change it here. So that is the single source of truth for a select few of pieces of information and gets delivered to our PIM and DAM. We also have some free form text, long form text. We have some multi-select, so you can select these things. Now this is really helpful where it keeps both our teams data consistent, so we don't have to enter the same information the same exact time each time. We have a way to just select this and it always displays it the right way. We have some radio buttons that I think you've seen in one of the previous screens. And then one of the really cool things that we're able to do is we were able to take our dimensions and enter them in a decimal, but the system itself will then take that decimal and convert it into a fraction and display it to the nearest eighth of an inch. So this was really helpful because it limited the rounding errors of our team. So it consistently rounds to exactly the same time every time. So let's jump back here. Here we have kind of all our relationships. So this is, as Josh was talking about, one to many and many to one. So this has our driver, our options, and our accessories. So this is kind of all related back to this product. And some of this information can then be used, pulled from these individual pieces and used on our technical documentation. And with this is kind of a quick look, but what's really cool to see is when we jump into our show relations view. And now if I go and pick a product, this kind of gives a spider view of all of the relationships that we've assigned to a specific product. So we have our images, there's plenty more. We can click into each one of these and expand. We have our pre-ship items, our subfamily, the product family that it's a part of. We have our driver, we have our main image, we have all the available accessories, and all this is clickable, and you can expand, and so we can see this driver is used on these products. And so it's a really robust way to kind of see where things are used and what's tied to what. And up until building this, we did not have this capability, and kind of had to do a lot of manual effort to even get close to even getting this type of data. So let's jump back to the product. And then we also have our usage. So this shows where this product is referenced in what documents, and kind of the hierarchy of our data model where it's located. So let me go in a few more of these tabs just to kind of give you a sense of what we've built. Here's just kind of more of the usage. media, we have our status check, our completeness check to make sure all the things, there's a lot of things that we have built into this. And then we have a couple different views on the imagery and such. And then we have some communication if we want to talk about this product. And again, our history. So this is kind of where all our PIM kind of information kind of relates to a product with some of the imagery. But now let me show you kind of how we've started to use all of this now that it's in one place. So let me jump into InDesign. So here we're in current version of InDesign. This is our tech doc template that we've created. Now here I have a plugin, and this is essentially our PIM and DAM system locally in InDesign. So you can see that I have my spec sheet open. You can see I have a product that's actually assigned to that spec sheet. And what's really great is that product, all of those digital assets that are a part of that product are assigned to it and accessible. I can drag and drop this into my InDesign documents from here. But for this demonstration, I don't even need to do anything here. I literally have to just take this product, click on it, drag it to my template, hit OK, and let it do its thing for just a few seconds. And I now have a spec sheet that one of our team members used to take 45 minutes to an hour to create per product. So this is kind of where all the magic happens, and it's going to save our company a ton of money and a ton of man hours, and now all of our information is up to date all the time. And so now let's say if Katie was to go into our web client and actually change our wattage or our dimension and save that in our web client, I would get a notification here that there's been an update. I would hit refresh and my data would be up to date, and I would be able to save, export, and publish to the website or anywhere that this needs to go. So let's talk about the future, where we go from here. So let me hand it back to Josh to share his screen.
All right, you should see my screen again.
Perfect. Thanks, Josh. So now, let me put my webcam back on. So now, after all that, we're now taking that automation process, kind of like that drag and drop that I just showed you, and we're going a little further and even going to take that fully into the cloud. So with Adobe Server, we're going to actually have that update and publish to our website on a nightly basis. So this truly saves us 1,500 hours a year at the bare minimum, and keeps our data 100% up to date all the time on a daily basis, so that our customers and our customer-facing teams don't feel that pain point anymore. And then our ability to adapt to new product types. Like Josh mentioned earlier, we did just acquire a new company and new products. So we're confident that we can take that those new products and adapt it into our current kind of data structure, and very shortly be able to produce the same type of gains that we see with our lighting, and build that out and be up and running really quickly. Additionally, online sales channels, we're hoping to kind of expand our online selling, and so through APIs, we're building those out so that we can push our products and the right information to all those different online channels. And then recently, a lot of our company-wide stakeholders have seen all the work that we put into this and all the data that lives in our system and how reliable it is, and they have started to kind of ask how they can consume that data and better kind of make our company as a whole more accurate and more streamlined, and just the ability to expand and grow and scale as we grow. So really kind of exciting times. So that's what I have for you today. So thank you for your time. Thanks, Josh. Back to you.
Perfect. So a few key takeaways, and then we'll dive into some questions here. Talking to Katie and Dave, flexibility was key. The data model flexibility was really, really important. Second thing, make sure you actually do an audit. Know where your data is at. As Katie mentioned, she thought, hey, we might have 30% inconsistencies, and it was actually 70%. And then the next key takeaway when speaking with the BEGA team was, if your product data and your digital assets are going to end up in the same place, then they should live in the same place. So, we'd love to chat with you. I've got Katie and Dave's contact details as well as my own. And we definitely happy to make ourselves available to you and kind of expand that network and answer some questions. The three of us have also put together kind of this 7 tips when procuring a PIM and DAM solution, so that you're not making the mistakes of others, and instead you're learning from those mistakes and championing the best practices when procuring a solution that will last you a lifetime, not something for a couple of years. So feel free to email me for a copy of that. And if there are a couple people on the line that would like a demo, the first 2 to schedule a demo will receive Apple AirPods for free. So feel free to take us up on that offer. And without some further ado, Theresa and I and Katie and Dave would love to answer some of your questions. Theresa, I'm guessing some have already filled in on the chat.
Yes, we've got a lot, and we've still got several hundred people on the line, so we're going to stay on until 1:15. So I'm sure this is going to be more exciting than whatever meeting you have next. So the first question that I thought was really interesting that came in was about roles and staffing. So people are curious, what roles do you really need to make this happen? What you just showed, who enters the data? Do you have a separate PIM manager? Do you have a DAM manager doing it? What's your picture look like? And then maybe Josh and I can add on what we've seen.
So for our company, people were already creating, managing that information. They were just doing it in a less efficient way. So I was already involved in creating our technical documentation and getting that information through Dave's team to the website, same with his team. So we haven't necessarily added anybody to take this on. We've just kind of shifted our focus, and the way that we were going to tackle that inconsistent product information was by switching our focus to PIM and DAM first, rather than trying to manually go through and clean up all of that data over the course of years. So that was our approach. We didn't actually bring anybody else on staff. We just sort of shifted our focus and how we were going to clean it up most efficiently. And the work was already being done. The information was already being looked up. It's just you're putting it in a different place.
That's good. That hopefully raises the spirits of some of the people on the call, because it's tough to get approval for more staff, isn't it? And I found the same thing where companies, they have a lot of really smart people who don't necessarily have the right tools or the right sort of governance in place to make it what it should be, right? So I think that's really great advice there. Josh, anything to add there? What you've seen?
I think it depends a little bit on the size of the organization, right, and the amount of data that you have. But a lot of that data, like Katie said, on the product side is already living somewhere, and it's being entered by someone. Now, the digital assets, depending on how many digital assets you have that you're going to relate back into those products, and the metadata around those may require somebody. But just again, I think it depends on the organization.
Okay, another question around change management. So someone was wondering, what are the change management issues related to PIM, and how did you specifically address them?
Katie, I'll let you go first.
Yeah, no problem. So we actually started with an export of our website as the first step to get a lot of the information populated, so that it could save some of that manual population that we were going to have to do of the system. And that was our line in the sand. So once that export was created, we weren't allowed to change things on the website unless we could change it in Censhare, so that we could keep those up to date. And then beyond that, we have clear ownership defined of, so a little bit back to Theresa, what you were talking about earlier with the product lifecycle management, we found ways to fit this into our new product introduction processes, and we know who enters which data when, who's responsible for it, and who's responsible for auditing that before it can go live. Dave, anything to add there that I missed?
No.
That was well said.
Perfect. And now, sort of related to that, as people are asking about departmental ownership, now your brand, I guess that means you probably fit into marketing. Is that how did you end up with ownership of the PIM, and maybe if you've worked for other organizations, or Josh, where do you see ownership of this stuff? And I could answer the same question, I think. How did it end up with you?
I can speak for BEGA, and then obviously to the larger organizations, Josh, you might have some visibility on that. So we're only about 170 people in North America. That includes all of our manufacturing team as well, and our outside and inside sales teams. So it is a smaller company. Our sales and marketing department includes both our brand management and our product management teams, as well as our customer facing departments. So Dave's team is typically the voice, and my team's typically the ears, is how we kind of relate to our product information. And so I kind of got brought into it because I was already involved in being sort of the product expert on a lot of that, and my department was working with sort of the bridge between gathering that customer feedback, understanding what products we're launching, and since we are defining the scope of our new programs and products, had a really intimate knowledge of the product information. So I think ours is a little bit unique, but we are within the sales and marketing umbrella at our company. So
yeah, and I think Katie and I work on a daily basis. We work together. We look at it as, you know, we're both ends of the spectrum. She starts the product and I publish it and market it, and so we have kind of a unique view of the product through its life cycle. And so, you know, I manage all the digital assets, but also need knowledge of the product information. And so it just kind of was a natural fit where we kind of the ones kind of saying like, hey, something's we're missing as far as quality goes, like we need to get better. And so we were kind of the voice of like, we need some change. And so that kind of, you kind of speak up, and you gotta be willing to do the work and make it better. So I think that's kind of how we got into this.
We do work closely with, oh, sorry about that.
No, I was just gonna say the fact that you have DAM and PIM in one system too, I think probably makes a difference as to why it ended up with, you know, with you as a, you know, working in brand and marketing and things like that, I'm thinking.
Absolutely. We have another department that also heavily contributes to the population of the technical data that's in our engineering side, but are more customer facing engineers. And so they also have a really good understanding of how the product's installed and all of those technical details. So they create a lot of that information as well. But there has to be one clear owner at least of who's making sure that it's ready to go before it can be launched.
Yeah, we often see outside of product managers and you know, DAM managers and brand managers involved in this process as people from an e-com team. So if an organization has an e-commerce team, they're often involved in this process as well.
Yeah, definitely. Great, excellent. So a question about scale. Some people were asking about like how many SKUs, how many parts, I guess you could say how many like sort of entities you have that are involved in your model, and how many, you know, what's the volume of that you're managing?
So I could pull up exact numbers really easily actually in Censhare, which is awesome, but I won't do that now, screen sharing and everything. But we do have around 1,600 active products, but another 1,000 products at least that have already been discontinued or in the prototype stage that have yet to be launched. Hundreds of families that then relate to those things, and even more in terms of the drivers and different assets that we've created to pull in pieces. So we have thousands of different PIM-centric assets, and those are going to continue to grow. Dave, do you want to speak a little bit to the digital asset side, because you have many more?
I don't even know have a number. I just know I had at least 2 terabytes of photos and imagery. So I don't even know quite the content, the number of the content, but it was been quite a sifting process to get them all signed. But it's a lot. It was a lot to manage before, and it was one of those things where me being a part of the company for 10 years, the tribal knowledge of being able to find those products, I was being asked on a daily basis, like, hey, I can't find this, and I would have to take my time out to go find it. And now everybody's like, oh, I need this image for this product. They know where to go. It's easily accessible, and I'm not getting those requests anymore. So it definitely frees up a lot of my time.
There was a question about a couple questions actually having to do with multiple languages and international. Now, can you talk a bit about whether you're using your system to do anything internationally, and if so, what you're doing there?
We aren't at this time, but that was a key piece in building for the future. So we knew that we would want that capability. And so one of our goals being building for the future, we knew that we needed a system that would allow us to do that. We are for the North American market, so we do business with Canada and Mexico and the Caribbean. So there would be a desire to potentially at least have Spanish and French in the future as well. And so we haven't activated it yet, but we definitely considered that.
In the plan. Excellent. Okay. Someone wants to know what your timeline was. Kind of how long did this take? And there was also a couple questions about cost. Now I won't force you to answer the cost question because that's not something you probably can reveal, but at least in terms of timing and sort of the number of people who worked on the project, maybe that would help.
Yeah, it's been let's see, about what, 2 years, Katie, that we've been started this process. I know we spent at least a year kind of researching where we wanted, like who we wanted to go with. So there was a lot of deep diving into different vendors, and we ended up picking Censhare because we fell in love with them. But it's been, geez, actually implementation, Katie, would you say a little over a year now that we've been kind of building out our data and ingesting all our content?
Yeah, that sounds right. And I think our approach, and luckily our boss's approach, is go slow to go fast. And so we really wanted to make sure that we were doing it right the first time. We were getting exactly the system that we needed, and we were designing it in a way that was really going to grow with us over time. So we were laying a really solid foundation. So we went slow to go fast, and we're seeing that return now.
Like that.
And I would say,
go ahead, Josh.
Based on the implementation, there's kind of always phases of an implementation, right? And so, and sometimes implementations, depending on what you want to do and the expansion you want to create, can continue to happen, right? So, for an MVP, I know you guys were up and using the system within a matter of months, but then as you say, hey, can we do this? Can we do this with the print? Can we do this? These transformations, those are, phase 2, phase 3, projects.
That's a great point. We do consider ourselves in phase 2 at this point. We've already achieved our phase 1 goals, and so we knew we were going to keep rolling with it. So, and we have future plans phased as well, or future phases planned as well.
Fantastic. Planning is always the first step. That's great. A couple questions about Adobe, actually. Some people wanted to understand a little bit better about the relationship when you're using, so Dave, in your demo, when you showed, you had Adobe open and then Censhare were kind of toggling back and forth, and then someone asked about Adobe Cloud Storage and how does that relate to DAM and using Censhare. Could you maybe talk a little bit more about that interaction?
Sure. So basically, I have two kind of things that I use locally. So I have a Java client that's on my Mac that has the entire Censhare, all our digital assets accessible on my local machine that's connected to the cloud. And then I also have a plugin. And so at any point, if I'm designing in InDesign or want to open up a Photoshop file, I can use those panels and it opens it up and it actually saves. So it'll pull an image from the cloud, save it on my local machine, let me edit it, do everything I need to. It's super fast, just like I'm working off a local file. Do all that, and then through the Java client, I just say, hey, I want to save and close. It saves it, pushes it back up to the cloud, and now it's accessible for anybody. And while I'm working on it, it locks the system, so it locks that file, so none of my team members can then grab it or modify it. So it gives kind of full visibility of what's being worked on it all the time. But it really, to me, it feels a lot just like I'm using Finder. Like I can search for all my keywords and such, pull up the file, and then it's literally just drag and drop onto InDesign, and the file's there. And so it's been a really seamless transition, and it's pretty cool. Like that was one of my main things with finding a DAM vendor, is that I wanted that local client feel, but everything's stored in the cloud. So.
Great. There's a question here that I really want to answer, and then I'm going to put it back to I think Josh and Katie will have something to say. So someone asked, she's currently searching for a PLM, and she's gotten information from these companies that they can also cover the needs of PIM and DAM. Is this becoming common? And I will just say, don't believe them. Don't believe them. I will say that's a bad idea. I've actually been involved in several projects where large companies, where companies try to use their existing PLM for product information distribution or for digital assets, because they say, well, the CAD file's in there, so we can put the other digital assets in there, and it's a disaster. So don't believe that. You definitely need best of breed tools to do these things. Dave, do you have a separate? Dave and Katie, do you have a separate PLM, and how does that interaction work? And then maybe Josh, you can comment as well.
Sure.
So we do not at this time. We manage our new product introduction and our product lifecycle management sort of in our own separate systems and visual management tools at this point. And that is one area where, again, we'd love to mature over time, but we believe that you need to have a lot of those processes defined in place, because otherwise, before you invest in software and systems, because software is not going to fix your internal processes at all. So that's where we're at.
Yeah, I think that's very good advice. Dave, anything to add there? Okay, go ahead, Josh.
I'll say this, a lot of vendors will say they can do a lot of things, right? Censhare is not a PLM. We do PIM really well and DAM really well and print really well, but we're not a PLM. But a lot of vendors, like I said earlier in the deck, is that, you know, a PIM vendor might say we can do DAM, but they really can't. Just because you can house an asset or a digital file or an image in your system doesn't mean you're doing DAM, right? And that's why, you know, we created that list of, you know, the top tips when you're procuring PIM and DAM together.
Yeah, and I would say, you know, if you are in the market for any of these tools, the best thing you can do is write use case scenarios, understand exactly what you need to do with these systems, and then you can test systems against those scenarios. That's really the only way you're going to know. You talk to their references, you learn about how other customers are using it, and then you'll make the right choice. We have time for one more question. Someone was asking about, and there's a lot of questions we didn't get to, so apologies for that, but we will download these questions and share them with the speakers and follow up. Print module, I think this is an interesting one because, of course, it's one of Censhare's specific strengths here. Connecting the product data to the print module, and wanting to know, does the data changes automatically get reflected in the InDesign file, or what do you have to do in order for that to happen? Can you automate that?
Sure. So like I showed in the demo, yeah. So like I showed in the demo, that was kind of our manual process. So literally, you just open up a document, and if it's already been built, it will display saying, "Hey, the data has been refreshed." You click one button, the information is now current, and now you can export, do whatever you need to do with that document. What we're currently working on right now is actually taking that fully into the cloud, to where we use Adobe Server, and this InDesign doc can then live in the cloud on a nightly basis. If that data has changed, it will trigger a workflow to then say, okay, run this document, update the information, export the PDF, and then our API to the website then says, okay, publish the website. And now our data is both accurate on the website and in our printed PDF that's housed on the website for download. And all that is without any human interaction once the data has been updated. So It's very seamless. And then soon we'll be also working on catalogs to where we can just then pull down technical information to do the catalog page, no approval process, everything's up to date. And we just, if something changes, it just notifies you and you can just say, hey, refresh, and you're good to go.
Outstanding. All right, well, with that, we are out of time. Josh, if you want to go to the next slide. If you have any other questions, again, apologies we didn't get to them, but you can feel free to email Josh. I would say would be your first point of contact or support. You're also welcome to email me with any questions. And next week, please join us again. We're actually going to get into a lot of detail about data models next week and sort of very granular information about PIM functionality in terms of what the systems themselves can do. So do join us next week, Tuesday, same time. And thank you again, Josh, Katie, and Dave for your wonderful contribution to the series. Very much appreciated. Thanks everyone for being here. Have a great day.